right, so join me. Lie on the back. We'll do a short body scan, a short check-in on the back, and you can see where you want to, how you want to place your legs. Do you want to have them long? Do you want to have your feet on the mat? Just notice what feels more comfortable. It would mainly affect your lower back area, where the legs straight or feet on the mat feels more comfortable. And if you're still setting yourself up, no rush. There's no rushing in this class, so we can move slowly. And then taking just a couple of breaths here, noticing what's in the foreground this morning, what's your energy level, any specific messaging coming from any part of the body that needs extra care. It's also lovely to check the relationship to ground and gravity, to feel the ground underneath, to spend a little moment just feeling the places where body meets the ground. Let a breath come in. Maybe you can open your mouth and there can be a wee bit of a sound when you sigh your breath out, to allow for the breath to be a bit longer and for there to be a little bit of an activation of the vocal cords. And then if you did have your feet on the mat, let's slide the legs straight. We'll do a little sequence where we're moving from the right side mainly. So I'm going to feel my right leg. The legs can be a bit wider than the hips, and we'll just turn the toes in and out a few times. And I want you to start slowly, maybe bring your right hand to the right hip and feel that even though my toes are moving, I can sense that actually that movement is coming from the hip socket. And you're doing this internal and external rotation. And what I like to mix here, at first I do these slow movements and you feel that it is a little bit more perhaps muscular, and then I let the leg flop from side to side, so I'm tapping into this springy quality of my connective tissue. And maybe the whole body starts to bob a little bit. So you're kind of tapping into this momentum. And then letting that leg relax. Just a short comparison, how the right leg, does it feel any different than the left leg? What's your relationship to the right leg? And then couple of rounds, what we're going to do is turn the foot over to the right, so the little toe side comes closer to the mat. And then I keep that little toe side contacting the mat as I slide the heel up. So that means that the right knee is going to slide out to the side, like almost like a tree pose. And then I slowly slide the leg back straight. And once the leg is straight, I'm going to let it just flop and have a moment where nothing needs to be active. And you do it at your own pace a few more times. And that's where the padded surface can be a little bit nicer, but also if the sticky mat gives a bit of resistance, then work with that. Move slowly and see if you can feel still kind of you giving the weight of that leg to the ground and gravity. So there's a sense of yielding here as the leg moves. It comes, and you can play with different trajectories. You could slide the leg a little bit closer to the left leg. You could slide it a little bit further out. And next time I'll meet you when your heel has slid up and I'll transfer the foot onto the mat. So I have the right foot on the mat, the right knee's pointing up towards the ceiling. I'll take my arms out from the shoulder so the arms can become a little bit like anchors grounding downward. When I begin to press my right foot into the ground, to lift my right hip And keeping in this version, let's keep the right knee more or less on top of that ankle. If it drops in a little bit, that's totally fine, but I'm keeping that right knee moving a bit to the right as the pelvis begins to tilt to the left. And then slowly pouring the weight of the hip back into the ground. And that's our first rocking movement from here. You're going to go at your own pace. And you can play with, so I want you to stay completely in a comfortable range. So if something is signaling pain or discomfort, see what you could change. Could you make the movement smaller or slower? What if you change where that right foot is? Bring it closer to the midline. Move it away from the midline and see how that affects how you sense the movement. And you could do that foot exploration even if you don't have discomfort, just out of curiosity. The foot could come closer to the bum, and it could move away from the bum. So a few more rounds, just this soft, fluid, rocking exploration. You could have your head rolled to the right, so you're creating this craniosacral rhythm of pelvis tilting one way, and then the neck the opposite way. And really feel that point where all of your weight has poured back into the ground on that right side. Have a little moment, little exhale there. And one last thing that I'll say is I love to go into this movement on the inhale and return on the exhale. See how that feels in your body. We call this unwinding. Unwinding. I'll do just one more. Perfect. When you have your hip back on the ground, don't rush it if you're still moving. Let your right knee drop out again and slide the leg straight so we can have a little moment of rebound, of noticing what is the result, what is the reaction, how is my body, my tissues responding to this. Just comparing the right side to the left side, or just noticing the way the right side settles the ground versus the left side. And we'll keep working on the right side, but I'll start now the movement from upper body. And the first part of it, both legs stay straight. I'll bring my right hand to the right side of my chest. And I begin to stroke the hand across the chest, so the hand is now leading the movement. And at one point, this right hand reaching towards the left fingertips is going to start to pull the right shoulder blade off the mat. The spine is going to turn. Maybe the hips, right side of your hip is going to come off the mat, and maybe the feet are going to turn. Head is going to turn. And then stroking back along that left palm and arm and chest, and having the right elbow come back down onto the ground. So play with this a few rounds. And you can play with the trajectory. So the right hand could slide along the left hand, but it could also slide above into a bit of a higher diagonal. And let the rest of the body follow quite passively. So the initiator is the right hand reaching, and the rest of the movement kind of comes and follows that, the turning, the rotating, the spiraling through the spine, through the hips, through the legs. And head really follows organically along. We'll go one more round with this version. And next time when you're back on the ground, pause. And I'll keep the hand on my right side of my chest. I'll just bring my right foot back onto the ground. So I'll slide it up and place the foot on the mat. And I'll still have the right hand starting the movement, the sliding, the reaching. The spine is going to rotate, the hip is going to come off the mat. But now, instead of right leg straight, I have the right foot on the mat. And again, you could keep that right knee more or less on top of that right ankle. If it moves, no biggie. That's not a problem, but just experiment. And go a few times like this. And try to really lead with the upper body. The temptation here is to begin to press that right foot down onto the ground and see if you can keep that part relaxed, and the movement can come from the upper body. Let's do a couple of more rounds. Find a pace that really matches your rhythm this morning. And I'll do one more. And again, when you've finished, you could let the right knee drop out and sliding the right leg straight. Again, a little pause. Now connecting to that whole right side. So not just the leg, but feeling into your waistline, your rib cage, your shoulder on the right side. And then bringing your attention to the left leg. So both legs are straight, feet are a little bit wider than the hips, and the left foot begins to turn in and out. Again, you could bring your hand to the top of that left thigh so you can feel this rotation happening in your hips, this oiling of the hips, so to speak, movement, bringing movement that is brought into that hip socket. I'll do slow movements first so that I can really kind of feel, oh, there are these muscles that are doing the action. I can feel some parts contracting. And then I'll do the springy movement, the elasticity of the tensor connective tissues that have this ability to release force into the opposite direction. So creating this springiness back and forth. And maybe again, let your body bob along. I feel like my body starts to kind of bob along the ground, up and down a bit. And then I relax it. I observe it. I see what doesn't need to be tense right now. And then beginning to turn the left toes towards the ground to the left and bending into the knee so the heel can slide up, the knee stays dropped out to the left side, the thigh stays heavy as I experiment sliding that heel up and sliding that heel down and taking a little moment of letting the leg become passive at the end of the movement. Again, find a pace. See if you can play with a few different angles or a few different options. What are the possibilities? And so one of the things with somatics, I think I don't remember the quite exact wording of the quote, and the quote is actually from Feldenkrais, which really inspired the somatic movement, is when we are moving slowly, we have a chance, this window, to discover new possibilities of movement. When we move fast, we move out of habit. And next time when the left foot slides up, you're going to transfer the sole of the foot onto the ground so the knee points up. Let the arms become these anchors, especially your left arm, left shoulder, as you begin to investigate now the spiraling action, the initiator is left foot pressing down, bringing that movement into the lower body, the pelvis tilting, and then noticing the spiraling through the spine and slowly bringing it back. So we'll continue with this movement for several rounds. So we have time to play with options if you feel like it. The options of where my left foot is exactly. What changes if I change the position of the left foot? Can I move slower and smaller? How does that feel in my body? Can I connect to my own fluidity? Inhaling into the movement, exhaling when returning back to the starting position. Beautiful. After the next round or so, no rush. I'll let the left knee drop out to the left and I'll slide the leg back straight for a little pause. Connecting to how do I sense my left leg now? How am I sensing my left hip? And then bringing the left hand to the left side of your chest, keeping both legs straight. Starting to stroke the left hand across the chest, reaching for the right fingertips maybe beyond, and seeing how does the rest of the body, how does it follow that movement? And then returning back. Initiating the spiraling from the upper body. And here to play with where exactly what pathway does the left hand take. At one point, you're going to change just one aspect. You're going to bring that left foot onto the mat. Otherwise, the movement stays the same. The initiation point stays the same. I'm still reaching from the upper body. But I have the left foot on the mat and continue exploring for a wee bit longer from here. Remember, no pain. If there's discomfort or pain, this ease with the movement, what can you change? How could you move more softly? How could you be kinder towards yourself through the movement? There's times when we need to challenge ourselves. That is definitely necessary, both for our bodily tissues and our nervous system, but then there's also times where we need to practice kindness. Trying softer. And maybe 1 or 2 more rounds. When you feel complete, dropping the left knee out, sliding the left leg straight. Find a place for the arms. So this is our last moment here on the back. So now noticing the left side, let your mind travel. The leg, the hip, but also now the feel of your waistline, your rib cage, your left shoulder. And we have this capacity, this ability to bring our awareness to different parts. And now also see, how are you sensing your whole body? And it's very natural that we sense some parts of the body are easier to sense than others because the map of the body is not even in our brain. But how are you sensing from soles of the feet to the crown of the head? Beautiful. I'm going to slide both feet onto the mat. I'll do just a few rounds of arch and flatten, so hands can be on the lower belly. I'll press the lower back onto the ground. I feel that movement. It can feel nice after these spiraling movements. And then I arch the lower back away from the ground. I'll again stay with slowness and with comfort. Just a few rounds, just a few rounds. Exhale when you press the lower back onto the ground, and inhale when you arch. And the next time when the lower back begins to move towards the ground, bring both knees to your chest. So holding on to right hand on the right knee, left hand on the left knee. Have a little bit of a rocking motion from side to side. Could be small or could be the one where you roll all the way to your right side and all the way to your left side. And then you can pick a side to start to curl up. So we'll change our relationship to gravity, rolling up and coming over to hands and knees for just a moment before we transition to standing. This is the place, if you want to, if you had your blanket over, you could also remove that. Come to hands and knees. Once you're there, do some free-form movement for the spine, for the shoulders, for the hips. So could that you start with cat and cow, and then you see what grows out from there. Just letting the spine ripple and see what else comes along as you move. Feel your shoulders, feel your hips, let the head follow the movement. And those who want to move more dynamically, that's where you're at this morning. Do this from downward facing dog. Find some movements, stretches, bringing breath to different parts of the body. You could do that from downward facing dog. And those who feel more on the opposite scale of the spectrum, you could even do less, bringing the bum back towards the heels and keeping the palms on the ground and finding some movements, what's possible from here. So just a few more moments. First tuning in, seeing where you're at, and choosing the level of engagement and intensity based on that. And then we're beginning to transition to standing. So what I'll do is I'll take a brief down dog and then walk my feet forward to the front of the mat. When getting forward to the top of the mat, just spending a couple of moments in a forward fold, so feeling the back line of the body and bending the knees generously, so that I am not overly tensing or feeling overly much intensity through the backs of the legs, but then having a little bit of buoyancy through the knees where I soften them and straighten them just to a point where I start to feel the backs of the legs. And then getting ready to roll up. So keeping the head tangling, arms tangling, pressing down through the legs. Again, could be slow, so you give yourself some time to let the spine slowly Curl upward. When we stand, just taking little moments to just land in this upright position, feeling into the soles of the feet. Maybe there's a bit of a wiggle through the shoulders. And we'll move from the top of the mat. We're going to be challenging our balance just a little bit. So first, just feel your feet and rock a few times forward and back. And then see if there's a middle ground there where you can feel the weight starting to pour more evenly between the front of the foot and the back of the foot. And then also do rocking from side to side, from right to left. And similarly make the weight shift less and less and less. So like a pendulum, can you discover the center by just tuning in? Where is there more evenness between the 2 feet? Good. We're going to balance more on the left foot, and I'll take the right leg back behind me, but I'll take the top of the foot back onto the ground, so I'll feel a stretch through the front of the foot. So the sole of the foot is facing up, and the standing knee can be slightly buoyant. I'm going to start to draw the right arm up. So I'm inviting this stretch in through the whole front line on that right side. Take a moment, lean back, and again, can I find some evenness in this back bend so I'm not crunching just from one place? Taking a breath in, taking a breath out. As I begin to release the right arm, I'll start to bring the right knee to chest and not using the hands at first. See how close to your chest the knee can come on its own, so it's the active range of motion, and obviously you are now balancing on the left leg. And at one point you could bring your hands around that right knee and hug it towards the chest, and maybe even curl your upper body a little bit towards the knee. So you are rounding and creating space at the back body. Take a breath. Let your left leg wobble. And then as you begin to release, bring your right leg and step it behind the left leg. So my right leg is behind the left leg, out to the left, and I'm on my little toe side of the foot. So the sole of the foot is facing away from me. I'm going to bring my right arm up. I bend into the left knee a bit as I explore the lateral line now. So I'm drawing the big toe side of the right foot up, grounding the little toe side of the foot down, breathing into the side body, and then finding a bit of a curl or unwinding from here as I curl that right elbow down towards the left knee, coming back to the lateral. And then once more, curling right elbow towards the left knee. Coming back. One last one. Curling, so a little bit of that spiraling from the standing position. Then spiraling back out. Beginning to bring that right leg back. One more thing, the knee comes to chest. And then I curl my left elbow towards that right knee. So we're twisting the opposite way. Coming out and going in one more time. Left elbow towards the right knee, spiraling. And then coming back to the center, releasing the foot onto the ground, pouring the weight back into that right leg and just taking a glimpse here. Just like we did on the back, noticing that right side versus how you sense your left side. Take a breath in. Take a slow, steady breath out. Then start to pour more weight into the right foot. So we'll do the left side. Top of the foot on the ground, left hand up, exploring first a back bend with the front line on that left side opening, creating space in the front. Finding again a point where nothing is forced. Breath. Slowly starting to release the back bend as you begin to flex that left hip bringing the knee in. Don't use the hands at first. See how far in can you bring it just using your muscles. Then you could take that interlock, fingers around the knee, curl it in, and see how it would feel to also curl the upper back, the forehead towards the knee. Take a breath. Begin to release the hands and the leg. Take the right leg behind, left leg behind the right leg. Place the little toe side of the foot onto the ground. The sole of the foot is pointing away. Left hand goes up, and first find a lateral stretch through that whole left side. Up into your ribs. Bend into that right knee a bit. See what that creates. And then how would I find some diagonals, some spirals? So curling that left elbow towards the ground, towards the right knee, and having a little pulse where you come out of it, and then you lean back into it. 1 or 2 more rounds. Excellent. Then next time when your left arm is up, coming out of that lateral, finding your balance again on that right leg, bringing the left knee to your chest, and then our twist over to the left by bringing the right elbow towards the left knee. See if you can do 2 of those maybe, or 3 of those. Balancing on that right leg, spiraling a bit. And then bringing that left leg back to the ground, having a little moment as the weight pours back to that left side. And then possibly a little wiggle from here. Good. Let's draw the arms up on the inhale, grounding feet down. Let's have a forward fold, emptying the breath out, folding in, folding in, folding in. Stepping your right leg back to a lunge. Take the back knee down. Let's take a kneeling lunge first. So rising up. Letting the hips find a place. Feel the front line now. Just we did one side at a time. Can you find it here where you find like this more unified curve through the back? Take a breath. And then exhale, draw the arms down, tuck the back toes. Let's take a high lunge where the back knee is lifted. Find your balance. Find the distance through both legs that works. And then in that high lunge, maybe a little bit of a shorter stance where you can soften the back knee towards the ground and curl your tailbone down. So feeling into the front of the hip here. Take hold of your opposite elbows. Keep the shoulders on top of your hips. As you pull on the elbows, draw your chin in and round the upper back. So your lower back is rounded or flattened and the upper back is rounded. Breathe into that back body space. Keep that right knee bent if you can. And then begin to lower your left elbow down and the right elbow up. Feel this lateral and the spiral. Stay here or begin to move your left elbow a little bit to the space, kind of to the left, as if you want to touch that left elbow towards your back heel. So you're spiraling away from the front foot. Take a breath here. What can you sense? Beautiful. Come back to the front. As you release the elbows, you could draw the arms out to the sides, having a bit of an opening through the front back knee. Could straighten if that feels okay. Drawing the arms up and then circling them down. Step back to downward facing dog. Steady breath in here. Slow breath out. Let's go through one slow flow. So I'm going to come forward to plank. You could lower your knees down and then come to all fours. Slowly down onto the ground. And then find a back bend of your choice. So lift into cobra, lift into sphinx, lift into locust salapasana, and stay for 2-3 breaths. Maybe the back bend moves a little bit and explores a little bit. Different angles and spirals from here. Experiment pressing the tops of the feet down, what changes, or pressing the pubic bone down more, what changes. Empty the breath as you lower. Rise to all fours. Let's use a downward facing dog to walk ourselves forward to the top. One more chance for a forward fold with knees bent or straight-ish. This time as we can come up, I'm softening the knees and I'm coming up with one breath, pressing the feet down. Arms could go to the sides and then up. Exhaling, hands come back in front of the heart. As we do the opposite side, on my way down, I'm going to curl down rather than the diving down. So as I prepare to come to forward fold, I'll curl, I drop my head, I'll curl my shoulders, I bend the knees, and I'll curl down. So it's just that we have different stimulation, not just always doing the one thing. When I've curled down, I'll send the left leg to the back of the mat. We'll do the kneeling lunge first, so the back knee can come down, pressing the front foot down. As the arms rise, they find a place where shoulders feel still spacious. Remember, shoulders could move a little bit to find their place. And a little bit of that front body broadness. How can I find without contracting too much through the back body? Take a breath. And then lowering the hands to come to high lunge, where the back toes tuck under, knee lifts, finding your balance, coming up to standing. And I might need to change your stance a little bit shorter so that you can bend into that back knee and you feel that you can kind of balance here. Draw your tailbone down and find broadness through the lower back, and just notice what you might then sense in front of that left hip when we broaden that lower back. I'm going to add the upper body, holding on to the opposite elbows, a little bit of a pull on the elbows, chin comes in, and now I'm also broadening through the upper back. Breathe into that back space, keep the left knee bent if you can, and then begin to lift the left elbow and to lower the right elbow. You can stay torso faced forward, notice. Or you could experiment with that spiral, where the right elbow begins to kind of move into the space back behind you. What if we keep that same principle, like when we were moving on the ground? There's a little bit of a challenge, but I prioritize softness. Breathe into the space you're creating. And then start to return back to the center. A little moment where you kind of offer the body the opposite. So we broaden the back. Let's broaden the front one more time. Find the arm position. Maybe experiment straightening the back knee, and how does that feel? And then draw the arms up. Lower them down. One more dog posture. Breath. And one more flow. Take your time with it. What if you spend a couple of breaths in each of these positions where we usually go one breath, one movement. Find your way to the ground. Maybe choose a different back bend that you did on the previous round. Spend a couple of breaths and see if you can find micro oscillating movements in that shape as a little exploration on your own. Take an exhale to lower, feel the ground underneath, and then press up. This time stay on all fours, round the back, to curl the tailbone under. Take a breath into the back space. Take an inhale into the back space. And then lower your bum back towards the heels.
Keep the arms reached forward. Take a breath in here and again into that back space, back of the lungs. Let your forehead feel heavy on the ground, or if it doesn't reach the ground, can you place your fists under the forehead? Feel your hips. Perfect. And then slowly, as you walk up to sit back on your heels, take a moment to sense. Do you want to now lie down, maybe take a couple of twists on the back? Is there a forward fold that you have been really wanting to take, or you like to finish with that? Or do you want to join me for a moment in seated meditation, finding a seat that you can hold comfortably for a couple of minutes? Just see what would be a good way to finish here. And as this is a shorter practice, maybe you just want to continue with something of your own. So feel free to also do that. Notice how you make that choice. Can we listen in first and then just try something? Doesn't have to be the perfect thing. And whatever you've chosen, use this time again to really stay connected to the felt sense of the moment. So whether you're sitting or whether you're lying down, or whether you're still moving. We're slowly letting our breath settle in such a way that we really feel that we can be noticing the breath, but we're not trying to control the breath. The attention again can move through the interior space. You could notice where it's naturally drawn to. And if the tendency for the attention is to stay kind of higher up in the thought realm, then just gently from time to time calling it back to the felt sense of the moment. So the feel of the breath or the feel of the ground underneath you. Feel the muscles in your face and see if you can soften around the eyes a little bit more. Resting, relaxing the tongue and the roof of the mouth. Letting the breath slowly move in and out through the nose. Maybe there's a tiny gap between the teeth and even between the lips where you feel your jaw is relaxed. It's not forced closed, neither is it forced open. maybe it's lovely to move into the weekend by just imagining a smile. So you don't even have to create a smile, but imagining a smile and kind of feeling the corners of your eyes soften. Corners of your mouth. And then that inner smile maybe can spread also into the heart, throughout the body, so that anything or everything that we carry can maybe be held a little bit more lightly and with a wee bit of a less gripping. So like we were fluid in our practice today, we can also be more fluid in the way we hold opinions and ideas and beliefs. And if you can, you could stay longer. And if you know that this was the time you had, make a slow, kind transition. If you're already seated, you can feel if there's a gesture that you want to finish with, the comfort of hands somewhere on the body, an intention you want to set and let it ripple out into your day. Thank you.